going to say some controversial things. I just turned 58, I don't care anymore. So, these are, what I'm about to say is my own personal experience. It's an aggregate. It's everybody around the world. It's, of course, it doesn't apply to any person in this building. It's all of those people out there that it applies to. Okay, so, just throwing it out. I've noticed something. I've noticed, I worked for a number of years at the Ottawa Board of Education as like a part-time job, mostly working with women. There's very few men sort of working in that. I noticed something. When men don't like each other, they stay away from each other, right? They'll go out of their way to avoid contact. Women don't do that. Women will go out of their way to compliment the other woman's sweater or their shoes. I've got a question. Sorry, this is I have many questions. This is the question. Who's harder on women, men or women? Women. There's not a man in. I'm going to get in trouble. There's not a straight man in the world who cares about your new shoes or will notice that you wore that sweater twice in the same week. The women at your work will, and they'll find a way to mention it, or they'll give a compliment, something like this. Not everybody could wear a sweater like that, but on you, it looks great. Sorry, that was just me entertaining myself, but I do want to talk about now men in particular. For the ladies who've been with a man for a long time, or you're married, or I know my wife has asked me this question. It takes me about an hour to wake up in the morning, and then often I'll stare out the front window, and I'll kind of have my thumbs hooked in my belt. And I'll just stare out the front. My old man used to do this. He used to do it with a cigarette in his hand, but it was the same thing 40 years ago, right? He'd just be staring. And Sherry would say, what are you thinking about? And I go, nothing. And I know a lot of wives would think, is he thinking about that ex-girlfriend he used to have in college? Is he thinking about regretting us being married? What I was thinking about the other week was, does it make more sense that mermaids have a top half that's a woman and a bottom half that's a fish? Wouldn't it be better if the bottom half was a human and the top half was a fish? Then they could walk around the land a little bit better. But would they have gills? The other thing men will think of is if a person can't swim, never learned how to swim, but dogs all know how to swim, and that person's a werewolf, will they be able to swim when they're a werewolf? I thought of this the other week. I'm not advocating it. I thought to myself, as I put to mail a letter out to one of the parishioners, I thought, what if I put my address as the address and the return address as his address, and then threw it in the mailbox without a stamp? Sorry, I got one more. This is my last one. This is the one that's the important one, right? Every guy's well, in addition to how much does it hurt to get shot? How much would it hurt if I got shot? No, the other one is, how far back in time would I have to go to be in the Olympics? Because I used to long jump in high school, and I actually would have qualified for the final in the 1924 Olympics. So I was pretty proud of myself. If I had a time machine and went back, I would just rule at long jumping. But we've all played the game. Once again, sorry, I think this is a guy. I don't think women ever think this. How far back in time would I have to go to be rich? You ever thought of that? If I'm making the income I'm making right now, how far back in time would I have to go? Then I could just retire at 45 with the money I had, because it was like a quarter for a hotel stay. But context is everything when you look at the past. the context of what you're doing and what you would be is everything. And all joking aside, the reason I bring up context are these readings for today, which seemingly don't fit together, but they actually fit together really well. The first one, Peter is being asked about going to the uncircumcised. So in other words, we're at that point in time when all of the original Christians, by the way, that term didn't come up until about 150 AD, by the way, right? It was just followers of Christ, but they were all considered to be Jews because they all were born as Jewish people. So it was at that point when all of the Jewish people who were Christians were questioning whether or not this was something, a message that was to be brought to the Gentiles, to the uncircumcised, to the Greeks, to the Romans. And a lot of them felt, no, this is our God, the God of Abraham and Sarah. It's not the God. They have their own gods. This is our God. And then Peter has this vision, a strange vision of unclean things being put before him, and God saying to him, take and eat. And these are unclean things from Leviticus. 11 to 15 in Leviticus are pretty well all the purity laws. And we look back now, and once again, context is everything. We look back now and we think, well, all these ridiculous, don't wear wool with cotton, and have you ever really looked at them? It's fascinating. Germ theory came up when? 1850s? Like, we're all brilliant now, right? We look back on the past and how stupid people were, and oh, thank God. Me with my 4-year degree in gender studies, I'm so brilliant. All these people back in the past were stupid. They only came up with germ theory, 1840-something, 1850s, right? Look at this Levitical law. Sorry, I know I'm going on. I'm on a rant today. I'm sorry. I didn't go to sleep. So Leviticus 11. I'll just read you a little bit, but basically 4 chapters of nothing but what not to eat, what not to wear, if you're bleeding, if people have leprosy. It's all... These are unclean for you among all that swarm. So everything that swarms on the ground. Whoever touches any of them when they are dead shall be unclean until the evening. And anything upon which any of them falls when they are dead shall be unclean. Whether an article of wood or cloth or skin or sacking, any article that is used for any purpose, it shall be dipped into water, and it shall be unclean until evening. This is the one that really caught me. And if any of them falls into an earthen vessel, all that is in it shall be unclean, and you shall break the vessel. Any food that could be eaten shall be unclean. Everything on which any part of the carcass falls shall be unclean, whether an oven, a stove, it shall be broken in pieces. They are unclean and shall remain unclean for you. That's fantastic advice. At a time when people had no conception of viruses and bacteria, if a dead rat crawls inside one of your earthen jars that has weed in it, the whole thing is spoiled. And you think, yeah, no brainer, I would throw that out too. But all the other people around who didn't have these laws, they would just eat it. They'd take the rat out, they'd brush it aside, they'd eat it anyway, they'd get sick, they'd die. These laws were brilliant. More importantly, they gave the lesson over and over again that unclean things can now be made clean through following my law. And as Christ says here, not in our readings today, but I'm going to read to you from Matthew 5:17. Do you think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets? No, I have come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. So in other words, what he's saying to Peter is, these laws were given so that all of my children can be in close relationship with me. That the unclean can be made clean. If you are reading these laws to mean that you are not to spread my message to those who have not been circumcised and don't follow these laws, you are dead wrong. Because I love all my people and I want you to go out among them, not to become like them, but that they might follow me. And that's a very, very important context. When Christ is speaking here, I give you a new commandment that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. This does not abolish everything that came before. What this is a lens through which to read all of what came before. In other words, if by these laws you are not loving your neighbor as I have loved you, you are misreading what those laws were meant to do. That's very, very important. And all of these, I don't say to following. There was a guy actually did a YouTube series where he tried to follow every single Levitical law, not cutting his beard, and it's very difficult to do in a modern context. Very, very difficult to do. But the spirit of that is the message that I have given you ways by which to worship me, to be in communion with me. I have made the ineffable understandable to you. And I have given you ways by which you can come close to me and to be made clean again. Ultimately through Jesus Christ. Because we're imperfect. No matter how perfect a law can be, we are going to fail. And we will not achieve that communion simply by a strict adherence to the law. That was the problem with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They were so focused on you need to do X, Y, Z, and then nothing else matters. And they were looking past helping the people around them. They weren't evil. They weren't evil. They were reading the scripture, the law and the prophets, without the lens of Christ. And that's what you get. This strict adherence, this, what's the word I'm looking for? Legalistic approach to things. And we can't just be head Christians, we have to be head and heart Christians. There needs to be a balance. Yes, we're given an intellect for a reason, and we're meant to use it to the best of our ability. At the same time, we have to have the heart of Christ that doesn't see sinners around us, but those we can help have a closer relationship with God. If you want to see a sinner, just go home and look in the bathroom mirror. It's what we all are. But we have to see see other people the way God sees us. As a people that are in need of redeeming, can be redeemed, must be redeemed, and it's an invitation that Peter has, and all of us have, to take part in that. It's a gift that God gives us, that we're allowed to have any kind of participation in that. It's a privilege. It really is. I'm just going to finish off here with our Revelation. We should maybe do a book study on Revelation at some point, because people are used to seeing that, reading the book and thinking, oh, this is terrible. I can't get through Revelation. It gives me nightmares. It shouldn't, because what it is the ultimate fulfillment of the promises that God gave to us. God himself will be with them. He will wipe away all the tears from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. For the first things have passed away. See, I am making all things new. And I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life.